This is a quick overview of Barnbrook Software's Making Tax Digital for VAT bridging software. When you first install the software, you'll get this screen which you can see here. You have the opportunity built into the software to test the whole process end to end by using a test user, which can be used to test the whole process against HMRC's test API. This will allow you to make sure that the software is suitable for your use prior to purchasing a license. Now this screen has a number of details which we would input into the software, so the Government Gateway Details ID, the individual or the primary user of the software, the organisation details which would be the company details, and then the VAT reference. Now I'm going to create a test user now. I'll simply click the button to create an organisation or a limited company. If you're a sole trader, you'd select the individual option and create a test user that way, but the process is exactly the same regardless of the business or being a sole trader. So we click create user. This creates a fictitious user on HMRC's test environment for us, so we can use that now to go through the whole process. In live operations, if you purchased a license, all these details you see here would be your company details or your individual details. The Government Gateway details is self-explanatory. It's the Government Gateway ID. You've put your password in there, your name and email address. Individual details, if you're a sole trader or the primary user of the software at a limited company, you put your name in there. The organisation details are the company details, the name, the number, the address, etc. And the tax references is your VAT reference number. Now, I'm just going to populate the rest of these details very quickly. So in the individual, remember this is the primary user of the software. I'm just going to fill that in. The update buttons on these screens simply save those updated details back to the application settings. The organisation detail, if you're a sole trader, you obviously may not have a company name, so that will just be your name, and you won't have a company number, so in that case just add 7 zeros. I'm just going to put a fictitious company number in here, and I'm going to update that for us. The software key, we provide the software license for you, so if you wanted to purchase the software, you'd simply send a request to us with the details which we require, which is all detailed on the website. We will send you a profile which you can load into the software. Now once we've populated these details, all we need to do is authorise the software. This is quite straightforward, and it's essentially just logging into your Government Gateway account and granting permission to talk with the software. So to do this, we use the authorization tab, which we can see here. As you can see, that's the portal to the HMRC's Government Gateway. So all we're going to do is we're going to take this Government Gateway ID. This will be yours in your Government Gateway details in live operation. So I'm going to start that process. I'm just going to simply sign in. I can copy, if I've entered my password, I can copy it to the clipboard using the button there. Click sign in. At this point, if you've got two-step authentication enabled, you might have to go through that process as well. But essentially, after you've done that, you will end up at this part here where you're granting authority to the software to communicate with your VAT account. So click the Grant Authority button. A code will be given to you. The software will automatically copy this to this box at the top here, the authorization code for you, so you do not need to copy it and paste it. The software will do that for you. Once that authorization code's appeared there, click the Authorize button once, and that will get you an access token. This will be saved to the software, so you shouldn't need to authorize the software again unless the token expires, in which case you would just go back through that process again. Very straightforward. Now we've authorised the software, we can actually begin to view and submit our returns. So if we go to the Obligations and Returns tab, this shows us any returns we've got which have been fulfilled or which are currently open. We can see the details of those as well, and we can filter this using the date range and the other options available on screen. In this test environment, we will see some pop-up test scenario boxes, you can just click OK on those, just ignore them. So normally you would set the date range for the information we're looking for. So that might be the 1st of January this year, perhaps. You can use arrow keys and things like that, or just select from the date ranges there, as you can see there. So we'll set a date range there, and then we click the View button. You were presented then with a list similar to the one you can see on screen there. That will show you any previous VAT returns during that period which you've submitted, and any which are currently open. Now, to view an existing VAT return, one which you've fulfilled previously, you can just click on the item and the figures that you submitted will appear on the right hand side of the screen there. If you're submitting a new return, so the open one, simply select the item and it will be highlighted, and then all you need to do is right click and you'll have the option there to import figures for that return. To import figures, the software will import from text files, XML files, CSV files and existing spreadsheets which you might have. If you want to use CSV, text or XML, then there's details of how to do that within the software's help file, which you can access from the help menu and the contents option. If you've got an existing spreadsheet which you wish to use, then you can configure the software to use these sheets, and this tends to be what most people will do. So for instance, if you're producing a report each time you do a return, and it's always in the same format, say for instance you're using Sage Accounts or something like that, you export your VAT return report to Excel. It'll have a standard format each time. So what you can do is basically configure the system to look at that. So let's have a quick look at that. So we click on Configuration, Excel Worksheet option, and a screen's presented to us here. This allows us to tell the system the name of the worksheet which we use and the values of the box figures and which cells they belong in. So this is the worksheet name, these are the cells which the figures appear in. Now if I show you a quick example of this, we can see exactly how that relates to an Excel spreadsheet which you may use. Here we see an example Excel worksheet which may be produced every time you do a return. Now if we go back to the configuration, remember the worksheet name and the box cells. So the worksheet name is this part here, this tab down at the bottom of the screen here. And in this case it's called VAT Return. So in our worksheet name we would configure that to be exactly the same, VAT Return. On the Excel sheet we've got the box 1 to 9 figures, and these reside in cells I11 to I19. So we simply configure the system to look into those boxes, so I11, 12, 13, 14, etc. Once we've done that, we simply click the update button to save that back to the system, and the software is now configured to look and pull figures from an Excel sheet in that format. Now this might be a completely different layout, but the principle is the same. Just simply put in the worksheet name and the cells where the box figures will apply. So our software is now configured to import from an existing spreadsheet. So let's do that. So as I said before, once you've got your applications up, just right click, click on the import VAT return figures option, and you now can import those figures from that Excel sheet. So I click the button and then browse to the file to import the details. There's the file. I select the file I want to import and click the open button. That has now read from the file on the VAT return worksheet and populated the 9 box figures for me by taking those values out of that worksheet. If we're happy with those figures and we're confident that they're all correct, we click the accept button. That now brings these figures through to the main VAT return details where we can submit those figures to HMRC. So once you're happy with them, you must tick the declaration to say that you think that those figures are correct to the best of your knowledge. Once you tick the box, the submit button will appear for you. So to submit those figures to HMRC, we simply click the submit button. A box will come up there just to give you a last chance if you notice any problems to cancel and make any corrections if you need to. Otherwise, you'll need to go through the correct channels for correcting any VAT return figures if they're submitted incorrectly. So click OK to that. You wouldn't normally see these boxes in live operation. These are just because we're in a test environment. And those figures have now been submitted to HMRC. So when we click on the open button next time, that will update at some point to fulfilled. It might be within the first few seconds of submitting the return, but depending on when you submit it, if you submit it on late afternoon, it might not be updated till the following day. If you submit it on a Friday afternoon, it might not be updated till the following week. This is normal. It takes a little time sometimes for HMRC systems to update. But essentially that will eventually change to fulfilled, and you will see the actual figures there which you've submitted. Now when you've submitted a VAT return to HMRC, a receipt will be returned by the API. You can view all your receipts from the menu above here, so the view receipts option. And basically the software will retain these on this PC which you've used to make the submission. And you can just open these up, they're just text files. As you can see here, this is a receipt file. It has a unique ID, has a timestamp, and some other details which are unique to that particular transaction. Now we recommend that you keep copies of these receipts perhaps somewhere else. If you've got a safe place where you keep your other backups and things like that, it's always a good idea just to copy those and just make sure that you've got copies of them in case something happens to the computer you use perhaps. So that's all there is to actually submitting a VAT return. That's now done. You've got your receipt back, job done. Liabilities is, again, it's just a view option. It allows you to, again, use a date range. You can click the view button there and it will just show you the amounts and if there's anything outstanding for those particular periods. Payments, very simple. Again, you can use a date range, and this option just allows you to see what payments you've made and when it was received by HMRC. So that is the Making Tax Digital for VAT bridging software. As you can see, it's very, very straightforward, quite simple to use. If you have any questions or you'd like to know more about the software, then please drop us an email or get in touch, and we'll be happy to answer any questions which you may have.